Richard Feynman. Unexpected formula that awakens the brain in the morning. Imagine waking up to a profound clarity each day. No brain fog, no sluggish groping for that first cup of coffee to feel human, but an almost electric sense of being alive and mentally alert. Picture yourself stepping out of bed with the same mischievous spark that once danced in the eyes of Richard Feynman, physicist, Nobel Prize winner, champion of curiosity, ready to crack open complex problems with playful ease. Now, set that image against your actual mornings. Perhaps you stumble out of bed, fighting the gravitational pull of drowsiness, haunted by a swirl of half-remembered dreams. The gap is stark. But rumor insists that Feynman, revered for his intuitive leaps in quantum physics and his knack for explaining complex ideas in childlike terms, had a secret formula that jump-starts the brain upon waking. The question is, how might that formula, described in certain corners as unexpected or quirky, actually apply to you or me? Could adopting a piece of Feynman's approach bring about a morning mental renaissance in our everyday lives? This story will take you into the labyrinth of Feynman's morning routines, the hints in his letters and anecdotes from his students, culminating in a method you could try as soon as tomorrow's dawn. Stick with me to the end, because once you see the final piece of the puzzle, you may never look at your first waking minutes the same way again. To understand why Feynman's morning approach might be so radical, we first have to recall who he was, a prodigy from Far Rockaway, New York, who soared into the upper echelons of theoretical physics. Famous for his role in the Manhattan Project, for unveiling quantum electrodynamics, and for the Feynman lectures on physics, he epitomized the art of demystifying complexity. Yet behind those iconic achievements lay daily habits that fed his restless intellect. He teased out ephemeral truths from messy data, devised Feynman diagrams that simplified subatomic interactions, and taught with a sense of wonder that infected everyone around him. Possibly the best clue to his mental vibrancy was how he'd greet each day with a puzzle-minded curiosity. Colleagues recall him bounding into morning sessions, eyes alight, as if he'd been unraveling cosmic riddles in his dreams. The rumor that he had a morning formula stems partly from this consistent energy and mental clarity. But was it literal, some kind of equation scrawled in a notebook? Or was it an intangible practice that harnessed the half-dream logic bridging sleep and wakefulness? We can glean some insight from Feynman's own remarks in personal letters and interviews. He often spoke about the delicate threshold between sleep and wakefulness, describing how the mind can remain playful and open in those first waking minutes before daily tasks crowd out free associations. In a letter to a colleague, Feynman once mused that if you prompt the brain with a question at bedtime, particularly a question about a problem that intrigues or excites you, something about the unconscious process yields fresh angles by morning. He teased that upon awakening, instead of letting distractions clamp down, you could harness that fleeting dream logic to crack open tough challenges. This approach might be the embryo of the rumored formula. But the story gets more tangible. Some claim that Feynman had a small set of steps, repeated daily, that turned these morning minutes into a mental goldmine. It apparently involved a mixture of mental imagery, a short reflection on a key puzzle, and a playful self-check that aligned new ideas with physical principles. Only then, he'd pivot to coffee or basic chores, ensuring the insights gleaned from that half-lucid state weren't lost. If this all sounds too ephemeral, like daydreaming, there's a deeper rationale. Modern neuroscience suggests that the brain replays and consolidates memories during sleep, forging new neural linkages. The transitional zone after waking can be rife with fresh, unconsolidated associations. Most of us waste that window, letting alarms or social media drown out these half-formed gems. But Feynman, ever the trickster, might have exploited that zone to glean novel perspectives. Indeed, this was the man who famously napped with a notepad near his bed, capturing ephemeral thoughts before they evaporated. So perhaps the rumored unexpected formula is less a set of mathematical operations and more an approach. Prime your mind the night before, harness morning's half-wakeful creativity, and systematically refine any gleaned insights. Now, an intriguing question arises. Why call it a formula? Possibly because Feynman used a playful, pseudo-mathematical structure to describe it. Some stories recount him scrawling a comedic set of instructions on a blackboard for younger colleagues. Dream logic, X, rational check. Ego equals unexpected insight. That whimsical equation, if real, exemplifies his melding of humor, open-mindedness, and scientific rigor. Or perhaps the formula was no more than a mnemonic device capturing the steps: sleep, pose problem, wake, reflect, validate. If so, the rumor that he codified it into a formal, unexpected formula is partially myth, partially reflection of how Feynman's mind turned even daily habits into puzzles. The bigger takeaway is that he saw morning mental clarity as a resource, and that by following certain steps, you can awaken your brain to unexpected brilliance. Let's consider how typical modern mornings sabotage that potential. For many, the alarm rings, we jolt upright, mind reeling with obligations, possibly check the phone for messages, get entangled in reactive thinking, and lose that delicate mental hush. Or we skip breakfast or rush with minimal reflection. If Feynman were here, he might quip that we let the day's noise crush the fragile morning gold. The rumored formula, however intangible, was about preserving that hush for a few minutes, enough to let the newly awakened mind stretch and breathe. Only then do you pivot to external tasks. The difference might appear slight, but, repeated daily, it can shift how your brain organizes ideas. Over time, you might see fewer mental blocks, more eureka moments, and a steadier sense of engagement with tasks. That aligns with Feynman's entire ethos. Small changes in approach can yield big leaps in understanding. Before we plunge further, let me pose our first question for reflection or comment. If you had 5 extra minutes each morning to focus your half-awake mind on a puzzle or a personal challenge, do you suspect you'd glean fresh insights or quell anxieties that normally dominate your day? And if so, which puzzle or challenge would you pick for tomorrow morning? Let's push on. If Feynman's formula was real, we should see it echoed in anecdotes from people who spent time around him. Indeed, several of his grad students mentioned that he'd show up at morning seminars with half-baked but brilliant ideas, claiming they popped in his head while he was still in bed. Another story says that while traveling, Feynman asked not to be disturbed for 15 minutes after his alarm, wanting to scribble notes in bed. He joked that this method had saved him days of frustration by letting new connections surface. That's hardly rigorous proof of an unexpected formula, but it consistently points to a pattern. Harness the twilight state of the mind, right after waking for creative leaps. Possibly, the rumored statement, awakens the brain in the morning, references that phenomenon. So how might we replicate it? Let's outline a structure that might approximate Feynman's method. Nighttime priming. Before bedtime, identify a problem or question that genuinely fascinates you, be it a work issue, a personal goal, or a conceptual puzzle. Feynman insisted that curiosity be genuine, not forced. You might jot on a slip of paper or in a mental note, how can I streamline process X? Or what does principle Y imply about scenario Z? Then let it rest. Gentle start. In the morning, when your alarm rings, do not leap out of bed or check notifications. Instead, remain still, eyes closed if comfortable, letting the residue of dreams mingle with your waking mind. Recall the question or puzzle from the night before. Observe if any images, words, or partial solutions float up. Resist the urge to judge them. This is the dream logic stage. Give it a few minutes. Bridge to logic. Next, consciously shift into a rational check. Jot down or mentally parse any ephemeral ideas you sense, linking them to known principles or constraints. Feynman's approach typically merges daydream with scientific scrutiny, so do not cling to a bizarre idea if it makes no sense, but do not dismiss it too fast either. Let the weirdness stand, at least momentarily. This bridging step might only last a couple minutes, but it cements half-formed insights in conscious memory. Ego check. Feynman disliked letting the fear of looking foolish hamper exploration. So if a concept emerges that seems silly or naive, note it anyway. The formula might instruct, subtract your ego, meaning do not self-censor. This fosters true creativity. Implementation or follow-up. After you get up, set aside a quick window, maybe during breakfast or right after a brief shower, to refine your notes. If a promising thread appears, chase it further. If not, no harm done. Over weeks, you might see a pattern. A fraction of those morning gleanings transform into valuable solutions or big aha moments. That fraction can be game-changing. Why call it unexpected? Because Feynman's entire approach pivoted on the surprise factor. He believed that if you approach a problem in the usual, linear manner, you risk regurgitating standard solutions. But by harnessing the free associative environment of morning half-consciousness, you open doors to leaps that defy conventional logic. That's where the unexpectedness shines. You might find angles that your fully awake mind would have dismissed as nonsense. The morning hush fosters a realm where nonsense can germinate into brilliance, provided you later weed out what truly is nonsense. For a busy professional or a creative soul, that marriage of ephemeral fancy and structured follow-up can become a daily wellspring of innovation. Of course, not everyone's schedule or biology aligns with a leisurely morning. Some juggle children, early commutes, or shift work. You might adapt by setting your alarm 10 minutes earlier or practicing a midday nap that mimics the half-awake logic. The principle remains: exploit a relaxed mental state, bridging consciousness and unconsciousness to coax out unusual insights, then refine them. Feynman's rumored formula is flexible. The key is consistent practice. Over time, your brain might get the memo. When I awaken, I'm open to ephemeral creativity. Let me serve up good stuff. A feedback loop forms, with your mind increasingly primed to deliver solutions in that window. Now, we must address potential skeptics. Could this just be a rebranding of well-known creative strategies, like sleep on it, or morning pages from creative writing circles? Possibly. But Feynman's flair for the unusual, plus the rumored references to a formula, suggest his approach was more systematic. He often teased that we should not just sleep on it, but play with it while half asleep, capturing the best of dream logic and real logic in tandem. That active bridging sets it apart from passive sleep on it, which seldom demands immediate note-taking or structured reflection upon waking. Feynman's spin was to treat the morning as a mini-lab session. If you do so daily, you're not just passively letting solutions float up. You're training your mind to expect that bridging moment, capitalizing on the synergy. We can see parallels in other geniuses. Thomas Edison allegedly napped with a steel ball in hand so he would wake at the cusp of deeper sleep, retrieving dreamlike ideas. Salvador Dali did something similar. Feynman's method might be simpler. No steel balls or armchairs. Just a quiet pause in bed. But the principle resonates. Harness that borderline state for creative gain. Unexpected formula indeed. The question is, do you have the discipline or curiosity to sustain it? For many, the morning is a scramble. But if you see how it might awaken the brain, you may carve out that 5 or 10 minutes. The rumored payoff is a new wellspring of mental clarity, ironically achieved by preserving the mental quiet that most of us kill by checking phones or anxiously scanning our to-do lists. Before we proceed, let's pose our second question for reflection or for the comments. If you started tomorrow by dedicating 5 minutes in bed to Feynman's bridging technique, letting dreamlike thoughts mingle with rational checks, what puzzle or project in your life do you hope this unexpected formula might unravel? Or in simpler terms, which area of your daily routine or creative ambition stands to gain from a daily dose of morning insight? Given the complexity of this approach, some wonder if Feynman's unexpected formula goes deeper than just bridging states. Could it involve cognitive hacks with numbers or vectors, or a short mental math puzzle that primes higher cognition? Possibly. Feynman adored quick mental calculations. He might have started each morning challenging his brain with small arithmetic riddles, using them as a mental warm-up. Then, once he felt the mental wheels turning, he'd pivot to the actual puzzle at hand. If so, that would refine the approach. Do a tiny brain teaser, then dwell on your big question in that half-lucid state, then note the results. This trifecta, puzzle, ephemeral bridging, rational check, would be quite in character for him. Indeed, some anecdotes claim he would recite or manipulate mental equations while barely awake, delighting in how his mind jumped to associations that by midday he'd dismiss. But occasionally, a gem emerged. We can see how this might apply to your life. If you face a coding challenge, a design conundrum, or a personal dilemma, you'd set the stage each night, maybe rewriting the problem in your own words. Then, come morning, you do a trivial mental puzzle, like quick multiplication or reciting prime numbers, just to spark the mental cogs. Next, you let your mind dwell on the main puzzle in that lingering dream logic. Finally, you write or record any flickers of solution. Over days, you might discover that one flicker among many is luminous enough to revolutionize your approach. That is the essence of Awakens the Brain in the morning, capturing the synergy of dreamlike creativity plus rational follow-through. One might ask, but how does this help me if I'm not a scientist or a creative? My mornings revolve around kids, house chores, or commuting. The same principle can reduce morning stress or sharpen your daily planning. For example, if you prime your mind about a scheduling puzzle or a budgeting problem, you might glean a neat hack upon waking. Even if it doesn't solve quantum equations, it can solve small daily pains, like realizing a new route to beat traffic or an alternative approach to meal prep. The synergy might also boost your mood. Many find that a quick moment of creative empowerment upon waking sets a positive tone, countering the typical dread of the day's burdens. We must, however, keep the bigger picture. Feynman was also a champion of skepticism and direct experimentation. If you try this morning formula for a few days and see no difference, do not blindly persist. Modify it, gather data, see which tweak might unlock better results. Perhaps you must go to bed earlier to ensure you're not waking in delirium. Perhaps a specific time of morning works best, like after a first alarm but before you fully get out of bed. The key is to treat it as an experiment, no different than how Feynman approached physics. Hypothesize, test, revise. Over time, your method might diverge from the rumored approach, morphing into something that fits your life and yields real mental clarity. Let's also explore how this technique might tie into maintaining mental sharpness into older age. If you condition your brain daily to slip from dream logic to rational focus, you're effectively training cognitive flexibility. This might help stave off memory decline or mental rigidity. Some neuroscientists advocate such mental exercises, like morning pages or half-lucid journaling, to keep neural pathways robust. Sagan, Feynman's contemporary, talked about how the mind can remain fluid if it's perpetually curious. The rumored, unexpected formula might be a micro-habit that fosters perpetual curiosity from the moment you awake. Over decades, that might indeed fortify your mental longevity. A final angle is the emotional dimension. Many of us wake with an undercurrent of anxiety, carrying leftover stress from the previous day or anticipating new challenges. Feynman's formula, by centering on playful curiosity instead of dread, might shift your emotional baseline. You start the day feeling engaged rather than burdened, which could unravel the cycle of morning negativity. That positive emotional stance further fuels cognition, as stress is known to hamper creative networks. The synergy between emotional readiness and mental clarity is potent. Feynman's entire persona combined intellect with a sense of playful mischief, so it's no surprise that his rumored method fosters a gentle, playful morning vibe. That vibe itself might be half the battle in awakening your brain to full capacity. Now, as we near the conclusion of this extensive exploration, let's circle back to the core. Richard Feynman, unexpected formula that awakens the brain in the morning. If you distill it to a single approach, it might read, At night, seed a compelling question in your mind. Awake gently. Let half-sleep logic mingle with the question. Capture any sparks, then refine them with reason. That's the simplest expression. But behind that formula stands an entire philosophy. The morning mind is special, bridging unconscious synthesis with daily logic. Feynman's brilliance partly drew on a discipline that valued such ephemeral transitions. If you adopt it, you might likewise tap a wellspring of morning clarity. At last, let's propose a culminating routine you can test. Call it the Feynman Morning Spark. It's a synergy of everything we've gleaned. Night setup. Right before bed, finalize your top question or puzzle. It could be big or small, as long as it genuinely intrigues you. Write it down in bold letters on a small slip or in a note app. Then put the device away. Envision yourself sleeping deeply while your unconscious mind churns. Gentle alarm. Set your alarm 10 minutes earlier than usual to provide a cushion. When it rings, turn it off but stay in bed, eyes closed or half open, resisting the urge to check anything external. Let your awareness settle on the question you wrote. Observe if any images, phrases, or half-formed solutions arise. Mini puzzle. Optional if you want to replicate Feynman's flair. Do a quick mental puzzle, like counting backward from 300 by 7 or listing prime numbers up to 100, just for a minute. This lights up your neocortex without fully banishing the dreamlike state. Harvest. Now gently pivot to the puzzle you seeded. Let your imagination roam, bridging random images from your lingering dream state with logical structures. If something intriguing pops up, mentally repeat it or store it in short-term memory. This step might only last 2 to 3 minutes. That's fine. Rational check. Open your eyes. Jot any flickers in a small notebook by your bed or your phone's note function. Even if it seems silly, capture it. Feynman famously championed the motto, "What do I care about how silly it is, if it works?" Over time, silly might lead to brilliance. Daily integration. Over breakfast or right after showering, glance at your notes. Is there a clue or a seed for a real solution? If yes, expand it. If not, no harm. The repetition itself trains your brain to deliver better insights next time. Keep data if you're so inclined. How often do these morning gleanings help? Do they lighten your mood or sharpen your task for the day? After a couple of weeks, adapt the routine. Maybe you need a simpler puzzle step or a short breathing exercise. The best part is personalizing it. Ultimately, the rumored formula is about synergy, using the transitional mental state to unify dream logic with rational analysis. Over time, you might find your mornings genuinely transform from bleary slog to a creative crucible. That's the final gift of Feynman's alleged method. Now, the last question for reflection or comment. If you tried the Feynman Morning Spark for 2 weeks, how do you imagine it might shift not just your creative output, but your overall relationship with mornings? Would you approach sunrise with excitement or with the same old dread? In offering this approach, we pay homage to Feynman's spirit of curiosity. Whether the unexpected formula truly existed in a single scribbled text or is a rumor capturing his morning brilliance, the underlying principle stands firm. Your morning state harbors a spark of genius if you gently harness it. That spark might be ephemeral, easily lost if you leap into daily chaos. But if you treat it with the same reverence Feynman gave to the fleeting puzzles of quantum reality, you can glean wonders from it. Indeed, it may be the best-kept secret for igniting your brain each dawn, bridging the silent creativity of dreams with the disciplined clarity of waking life. If you find yourself brimming with new ideas or renewed motivation each morning, then, in effect, you've proven that behind the rumors lies a real, potent synergy, a synergy that just might be the unexpected formula for a life of daily brilliance.